Say the Semantics episode 287. It is December 30th, 2024. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Monday noon or afternoon, whatever you want to call it. Took the day off today. Trying to kind of enjoy it through New Year's, enjoy some time off through New Year's, and take advantage of that time and see some friends and see some people, just hang out, that kind of thing, relax, all that stuff before going into January where things pick back up for me. So it's been a nice little, last week I had some time off for Thanksgiving, or not Thanksgiving, Christmas. And now it's kind of, a bit more of a additional extended period for me, which is nice. I'm trying to, catch up on some stuff, catch up on maybe some shows that I haven't watched in a while. Obviously some basketball as well. I talked last time how I've been a little in and out of, NBA play. I'm sort of back in it now, I would say. Actually going to a game later today, so I'm pretty excited for that, watching the Warriors play the Cavs. So hopefully that's a good one. They got their asses beat when they went to Cleveland, so I'm hoping that this will be a bit more competitive. I'm hoping that they can bring it this time around. We'll see kind of how it goes. This will be a huge test. This is, Cavs currently, I believe they have the best record in the league. And I think tied with OKC, best record in the East for sure. But they are definitely a tough opponent. They are the kind of the exact team right now for us, I feel. I mean, luckily they're in the East, so it doesn't matter too much in terms of playoff contention. And I mean, right now we're not even in the playoff bracket. I think we're in like 11th or 10th. We're in the play-in. So we got to work our way back up into the playoff picture, but if they were, they would be kind of the kryptonite for this team. The Warriors they just struggle so much with large front courts. We kind of saw that again. We just cannot beat the Clippers. Zubats just has our number. For some reason, we just do not have the interior defense to hold up against him, which is incredibly frustrating. We just see it over and over again. They've just owned us this season, and it's kind of, I don't know. It's a bit of a carryover issue from the last season, the last couple of seasons. Honestly, it's just not something that they've really addressed. It is just when we do come up against these larger teams who have, their 7-foot forwards and 7-foot, centers, we just cannot contain them. And it does have me a little concerned with this Cavs team because they both have the interior as well as the offense from players like Mitchell, Garland. They got their 3-point shooters. I think Levert's been playing pretty well. Tyler Jerome was going off earlier in the season. I have no idea how he's doing now. I'm worried a little bit that he's going to go off against us again. But they just got players, man. They just got hoopers. So I'm a little concerned. Just the overall makeup of their team is really just very detrimental for ours. They have just such an advantage, but I don't know. It's just going to be a matter, I think, of how well we can take care of them. I think I haven't watched like a ton of Cavs games, but from what I've heard, it is their 3-point shooting this year that has been just high. One of the better percentages in the league, and they just have players that can make threes kind of across the board. You got Evan Mobley. I do remember, seeing there was like a highlight against, I think it was maybe the Hornets earlier this year where he made like I don't know, like 5 threes or something like that. So he can now also shoot the three. So it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be a tough team. I mean, we lost by like 50 or something against them. I don't know, 40 or 50 points against them this year. So, yeah, I don't know, man. We've had a couple, like, it's that one, and then it's also against Memphis where we've just completely looked just left in the dust. And I don't think that's going to be the case tonight, but it's a little, it's a little concerning. You know what I mean? It's like if we fall behind, we just struggle to get back into the game. I mean, if we fall that far behind, it's almost guaranteed that it's a loss. I think 20-point leads, obviously, are something that most teams nowadays can really overcome just by the virtue of 3-point shooting. But I just I'm not putting too much faith into where we are currently. We just we haven't been able to kind of keep up our offensive schematics from earlier on in the season. Obviously, I've kind of reiterated just the lack of sustainability that both the offense and the defense from the team have shown. It just was not going to end up being a case where you had all of our role players clicking and making those shots, right? Like earlier on in the season, we had players like Lindy Waters making his shot. He started some games for us because he was able to provide confidence to Steve Kerr that he could be a potential rotational player. But based on what I've kind of seen recently, he just has not been too much of a factor recently. Kyle Anderson has just kind of fallen out of the rotation, which I'm still a little, puzzled about. Like I just feel like he would be a really good, potential kind of fit for this team, like as a bench player, as a secondary kind of ball handler, that kind of thing. So I would like to see him be kind of integrated back into the lineup. I just think that's a little questionable that he isn't included in that. So I would like to see that. I also would like to see I want to see some more like consistency from, I don't know. I just want to see more consistency from our other bench players. Last game, which I didn't watch a ton of. I watched some of the highlights against the Suns, which it turned out it seemed like a pretty good game. We just did not have, like, outside, like, Kuminga was going off, but outside of that, like, we just did not have the bench production to really back it up, right? I am still kind of in the camp that would be okay with trading Kuminga for a potential, secondary scorer and that kind of thing. He has looked really good over the last, couple of weeks or so, but I just, you know what I mean? Like, I've seen this before. Like, I've seen this kind of production from him before, and I'm a little hesitant to put that type of, additional expectation on him to be kind of the breakout performer alongside Steph. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be hard, obviously. I've talked about this before, to like find that other person to kind of be a supplement for alongside Steph. But I feel that we just need to find someone that's reliable to really try to get us over the edge. I don't, easier said than done, of course. But I think it's worth looking around. I think it's worth taking a risk this year. Is it something that might bite us in the ass? Maybe. But again, it's like we will continue to bite us in the ass if we don't make moves, really. I think it is worthwhile to do something. I genuinely believe that this is kind of the last year. Like next year, Steph's going to be going into 37, 38 years old. I am not going to be putting that same level of weight that we did in the past. He is, he's still incredible. He still has his moments. But I think it is safer to expect some level of regression going into next year. And really just try to capitalize with what we have this year. And it just means we just got to try to, like, and if it means like trying to kind of front load the starting lineup with as many talented players as possible, like we sort of did during the KD era, I think that's probably the best way to go. Obviously, again, the talent is not out there. There is no KD out there that we can just slot into this team in that way. But there's just got to be something else that needs to be done to really push us to the level of contention, I think. At least playoff contention. Because right now, while we have been able to get some decent wins, I mean, the last win we had against was the Suns, who are also kind of struggling because of their sort of, just their team makeup. We just need to find a way to get above these kinds of teams, to get to the level of, I don't know, some of the other Western Conference teams that are kind of in the mix of things. We are able to compete with teams like Houston, even Dallas. So I feel like it's just going to be a matter of, getting to that next level, to that level of, like, at least in playoff bracket position as opposed to play-in. You know what I mean? Those are, I'm kind of setting high expectations, but that's sort of, that's where I would want us to be if we do make a large splash during the trade deadline or before the trade deadline. But yeah, those are obviously my wants and my desires for this season. I thought that my sort of worries were, like, assuaged or swayed away because of the beginning of the season, but unfortunately they've just kind of held up. And so, yeah, there still needs to be some moves done in order to get this team to proper contention level. And I'm really trying not to set those expectations, honestly. Like, I want them to be good, of course, but we know, and this is something that I've said over the course of the season, but it is, the Western Conference is insanely tough and incredibly tough, and it's going to be very difficult for us to be kind of in the mix, you know what I mean? And so I just want them to be, I just want them to be competitive, and I want them to be as good as they can, despite maybe some of their limitations. But they do need to get, there needs to be some level of roster shakeup. Just really take advantage of this year. Maybe next year. I'm a little hesitant to really put too much into next year, but it's just focus on right now. We just can't, we'll deal with the future when we're bad. We'll deal with it. We'll get there. We will get there eventually. You know what I mean? And just get ready for that, but don't worry about that for now. Appreciate what we have right now, and hopefully the front office is able to take advantage of the time that they do have right now, and capitalize on it. But yeah, I'm excited for tonight's game. I'm looking forward to it. This will be the first game that I'll be going to this year. Who knows if it's going to be the only one. Games are very expensive, but I'm going to be going with some friends, so it should be a good time. So outside of the Warriors, it has been, post-Christmas. I think it feels like there's been a bit more of I don't know what to call it, an increase in level of play or level of competition, if you want to call it that, I feel that I haven't, watched everything, but I've seen kind of the scores and sort of, box score watching that games have tended to be a bit more like competitive in recently. And so I think that there is maybe a bit more of a level of urgency kind of leading into next year. Because right now, if we look, teams have played almost like maybe a little over like 30 plus games, like going into like maybe like 40, about almost like 35-ish games or so, which is almost to the halfway point of the season. And I think that we've gotten enough of like a sample size really now to really kind of get a sense of where teams are. Once we do go into kind of post All-Star break is what really when kind of things will kind of get into high gear, obviously. But in terms of just like the makeup of the current rosters of each of the individual teams, I think you have like a good sense of, where they are, which ones are kind of the, which ones are like the tanking teams and which ones are kind of the upper echelon teams. Obviously, there's going to still be a lot of shakeup, and a lot of, movement, especially like in the Western Conference and that kind of thing. But, yeah, you're getting to kind of see some movement across the board in terms of, positioning, what teams are going to be really the best. It really looks like, as of now, OKC and Cleveland are kind of the, top of the, top tier teams in their respective conferences, which was sort of, especially Cleveland was kind of unexpected, just the leap they were able to make. Boston has kind of faltered a little bit, which I think was maybe expected for some people. It is hard, it is incredibly difficult to follow up like a championship, with another kind of winning season. I think it's difficult to really win, back-to-back championships. So it's, I feel, I did expect them to still be, probably the best team in the league, but they've had some injuries, it seems like, with like Drew Holiday. Porzingis always feels like he's in and out of the lineup. But yeah, it seems like they've kind of, they lost against the Pacers yesterday. It looked like I watched like parts of the game. They just weren't like making their shots. I think when there is, and this is such like a surface level observation, I think when you as a team rely so heavily on 3-point shooting, and when that doesn't work for you, I think that can lead to, the offense being somewhat stagnant. Like, it's just kind of like go down, shoot, miss the shot. You're unable to secure like an offensive rebound, which will be huge for second chance points. You just kind of lose possession kind of almost immediately. You know what I mean? I think that if you are, last year they were such like they were both high volume and high percentage, shooting team, that it just kind of like, it secured them the ability to be like such a great team because they had, some incredible shooters just across the board and the roster and that kind of thing. But like when your shots just aren't falling, like you have to find another way to score. And it just wasn't like, their offense, from what I just was seeing, is just like not super dynamic. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, hey, listen, we have some incredible shooters. Let's just make sure that they can get their shots up. But it's just like, if they don't fall, it's like, I don't know, man, what else can you do? I guess you can try your best to, like, I just, from what I've seen, like they're it's just not, like when I watch them play, they're just not the most, they're good, of course, like on both sides of the ball. They're very good, but they're just not that exciting to watch. 'Cause it's like what you see is like it's like almost like 5 out for them. Like they're all on perimeter. Like you got Horford like in the corner usually, and then everybody else is in, other parts of the arc. It's like, and if that's kind of the scheme, I don't know. It's I like just as like a very from a very novice, like obvious, casual fan watching the game. It's just like I don't know, like if that's kind of what the game plan is. Like I feel there has to be some kind of shakeup, for them to kind of be able to. I don't know if something isn't working, there needs to be a bit of a change. And yeah, I mean, losing against the Pacers is probably not the best look. I mean, they did blow them out, like, a couple nights before, but I don't know. It just wasn't like a very confidence boosting, position to be in. But it just happens, you know what I mean? Like these kinds of slumps like happen, and it's not that they're a bad team by any means. They're still really good. But it just doesn't, they're definitely not the juggernaut, like they were last year. I think there's just once like a team like them kind of, wins the way they did, other teams are going to find a way to, try to counter that, try to counter their offensive production by, they themselves becoming better shooters than they were, and then also, defending the 3-point line better and that kind of thing. So, I mean, that's just kind of the nature of the game, right? Like, it's just, you both got, season to season adjustments, but then you got the in-game adjustments as well. So I think that there's just a lot of other teams now that are able to kind of hang with them, because I don't know, maybe over the summer, they prioritized the 3-point shooting and they prioritized defending, the arc and everything. So I think it's just kind of the nature of everybody else maybe catching up in some ways. Obviously, not every team is going to, there's still one of the better teams in the league, absolutely. And I don't, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they, somehow regain position to be, the number one seed in the East. But like you got, as I mentioned, you got Cleveland. New York is catching up as well. They were a bit lackluster earlier on in the season, just trying to figure out the pairing of all their new players. But now they look like they're, really kind of, things are kind of kicking in, and I think they're on like a 6-7 game winning streak. Like they look good. They look really good. So I think that could be a team that could be some trouble for Boston. So I think it's just kind of the way in which the league is sort of looking right now is this parity period, right? I think I said earlier on before the season that I expect there to be a new champion this year. I think that OKC is going to be the 2024-2025 NBA championship or champion. That's kind of my sort of prediction. And I just think that they just look really good. Like, sure, they have their own faults, of course, but they're not even at full strength. They don't have Chet. I know that like some other players are in and out of the lineup. Like Caruso's I don't think he's been playing that much either. So, yeah, even at where they currently are, they still look really good. I just looked at the standings and they have like a 11-game winning streak, which is funny to say because they did lose the the NBA Cup championship, but that doesn't count in the records. So they're still technically on a on a winning streak continued from before that. So good for them, Maybe that kind of maybe that cup loss sort of motivated them even more to be a better team. So yeah, they look good. They look really good. So just sort of a bit of a mid-season kind of look. Obviously, we're not quite there yet. We're not quite at like 41 games yet, but we're getting there. It's going to be there probably in the next couple of weeks or so. So I think that'll be like I'm expecting there to be more of an assessment by people that actually know what they're talking about. But as someone who is very casual, who hasn't really been paying that much attention, that is kind of what my perception of the league what the league looks like across the board to me. So interested in seeing how that goes. We still got a long ways to go, even getting to the trade deadline and All-Star break. So we got a lot of time. So outside of basketball, I've actually been watching, or rather, I watched the first half of season 3 of ReZero, which I had completely just sort of, you just go through periods, as I do, of just not watching anime or that kind of thing. I kind of I was just thinking about the show because I hadn't watched it in a long time. I just realized that the third season was up. So they split it off. I think the first half of the season was released up until 8 episodes earlier this year, in the fall, and then second half is going to be released in February. So just sort of like a half and half kind of thing. I've enjoyed it. I've liked the season 3 so far. Interested in seeing how it goes. I think it's been a while since I watched the show, so I had to kind of watch this recap video of what happened in season 1 and 2. And I think it was because it was it was a couple of years ago, I think, since season 2 came out. So it just, when it comes to certain shows, it's just I need to kind of refresh, especially when there's such a bit of a and it's not even that long of a break, in between seasons. I mean, if you look at something, One Punch Man, that show has been, I mean, it's been 5-6 years, it feels like, since season 2, you know what I mean? And it was just such a long time even between seasons 1 and 2. So I don't know what's taking them so long for that show. And the manga and the webcomic are so far ahead. It's just I don't even know how they're going to be able to catch up to that point. And it's just I've kind of, it sucks. I mean, I've really liked season 1. Season 2 was, a bit subpar because of the animation and everything. But yeah, I still enjoyed the show when it, was kind of at the peak of it. But man, that was 10 years ago. It was 10 years ago when season 1 came out or something. It's been such a long time. So you just can't, I don't know. I don't know who are able to kind of make the decisions in terms of green lighting which shows should, be animated, but I feel that One Punch Man, despite kind of being in kind of this sort of hibernation period, you still got the manga going, you still got the webcomic going, obviously. I feel it's still pretty popular despite all things considered. I just don't know why they wouldn't prioritize that. I don't know how the decision making is done, but it's just I don't know. Don't you want your fans to be kind of more invested? I don't know. It seems kind of frustrating to be in that position. I've never been the biggest One Punch Man fan by any means, but I still really enjoyed the show when it originally came out. At least season 1. Season 3 I think is coming out next year, but it's such a long time, man. It's crazy. Anyways, I watched season 3 of ReZero, or the first half of it, and I've enjoyed it so far. I think it is really interesting. This is one thing that I kind of noted. This is just kind of a general observation of anime. They really use the 7 deadly sins kind of theme, the kind of the just sort of the framework of that, just kind of across the board in a lot of anime. Like they really use that as kind of a, storytelling, plot device, or as a character descriptor. Like they really they really just kind of plaster that. I mean, first time I kind of saw it was in Full Metal Alchemist. Obviously, you got the anime Seven Deadly Sins, just the that show, and then you see this in ReZero with some of the characters kind of naming themselves after the sins, and I'm assuming I'm just these are just some of the more popular anime, but I am assuming that this is used quite heavily in other instances as well, which I think is kind of funny. I do think it is, it is an easy way to sort of, without even really providing a description for the character, just labeling them as one of the sins, you already get a sense of who they are and what they represent and that kind of thing. So I think it is sort of a way to bypass the need to really provide a ton of, detail and that kind of thing for characters. In the case of ReZero, you have characters that they have their own name, but they are sort of representative of a sin, and through their actions, it's for the case of someone like the archbishop representing greed or whatever. He has a ton of wives, which is kind of, you could maybe make the argument, oh, maybe he would be representative of lust or something like that. But I think it makes sense for him to be greed, because he's like greedy for affection, greedy for just having just sort of like objectifying his wives and that kind of thing. So it kind of makes sense in his case. But I think it's a good placeholder, but also you can kind of derive a lot from that. And it's not always the case where they're just going to be, the exemplification of the sin itself. It's just kind of a way for it to, if they are representative of a sin, you just get like a good idea of what they represent, and you get a good idea of what their character is, and that kind of thing. So I don't know. I guess that's just kind of maybe the reasoning for why anime sort of are kind of used and continue to use the seven sins as a theme, kind of in a lot of instances, right? I mean, it is pretty, it's pretty well known, and it kind of, holds some water and that kind of thing. But I don't know. It was just something that I noticed when I was watching the show. I was like, I feel like I've seen those before, but I've seen this in other shows. So I mean, it's not just an anime, of course. You see this in TV and movies and that kind of thing. So it's not at all uncommon. But I just noticed it in anime more because of the way that they show it. They have characters themselves be the actual representations of the sins. So that is just kind of a bit more easier to take examples of that. But yeah, that was just one thing that I noted. The other thing, I just enjoyed that. It did kind of fly by. I forgot. I sometimes forget how quickly anime flow. How quickly they go, because each episode is 20 minutes long. So you can just really just binge through shows very, very quickly. But yeah, looking forward to when the rest of season 3 comes out, which will be in a little bit. I also started to play Final Fantasy 12. Not very far into it, maybe a couple hours in. It did have a very interesting and kind of engaging intro sequence, where I was sort of expecting it because I had kind of heard about the intro of the game being a bit of a maybe misdirection of sorts. Um, but there's a lot of political intrigue in this one. There's a lot of kind of, you got these like power struggles going on, these conflicting nations. And for now, you follow this character called Vaughn. And from what I've heard, he's not necessarily kind of the main character. He's just sort of kind of the focal point. That is all I haven't heard that much else. But he's like, and he's not really, I don't know. I will just say this. I like it so far. I think I'm interested in seeing kind of where the plot goes and, what the characters, because I got to a point where you run into these two other characters, Balthier and, what's her name? I forgot her name. We just met her in the game. And, they seem to have kind of their motivations and they're willing to kind of work with you. And so I'm curious to see what the kind of the overall goal is going to be. Are they going to go up against the empire that is currently holding their own sort of city and kingdom and hostage, or is there going to be maybe more to that? I'm very interested in seeing kind of the development. My sort of, I guess, criticism versus my qualm is that Vaughn himself is not very interesting so far. He seems kind of a typical kind of kid thief character. And I also don't want to be too harsh, but it also doesn't really help that his voice acting is not very convincing. This is for both actually the Japanese and the English as well. So I was listening to the English for the first kind of the intro sequence of the game, and I thought it was actually pretty good. But then once we got to Vaughn and Penelo, I think is her name, and it kind of fell off quite a bit. And then I switched to Japanese, and even then the voice acting wasn't that great for both of those characters in Japanese and in English. And it was just like, I wish there was just maybe a bit more. I don't know. They just don't have very distinct voices. And it just is like not very engaging, in my opinion, for both languages, really. So we'll see how it goes. I don't, I just started the game, so I'm sure that maybe they'll grow on me as time goes along. But so far I am intrigued, though. I am intrigued on the direction of the story. The combat is kind of in line with what I expected for to be sort of like, kind of Xenoblade-esque. I know obviously this game came before Xenoblade, but you know what I mean. Kind of auto battling for, your sort of party characters while you control your character, that kind of thing. The gambit system where you set it up so that your character makes decisions based on the hierarchy of kind of what should take precedence, so you could have it set up where your main character attacks the first or the most closest character by you, and then the secondary action would be for them to heal or something like that. So I feel that it's probably going to grow and progress. It's hard to gauge. I just started the game, but I think that I'll be enjoying this game quite a bit, but I like it so far. Anyways, I think I'm going to leave it off at that for now. I got a few more days of break, which is going to be nice, and after that, we're going to get back into it. But until then, probably until this weekend, or, whenever I have the time or feel the want to record, I will hold off on anything else and, save any other further discussion for later this week. All right, recording this on the morning of Sunday, January 5th. We are into the new year. When did I start recording? When did I record last? Was it before New Year's? I don't know. I can't really check right now. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Anyways, if I hadn't said it before, Happy New Year to anyone who's listening beyond the 1st of January, which would make sense because I will be uploading this probably either tomorrow or sometime this next week. So yeah, Happy New Year. 2025 is a number. It's definitely a number. I think at a certain point I just don't really, like, when it hits 2030 I'll be like, wow, no way, but it doesn't really surprise me too much, you know what I mean? I know there's gonna be, if there haven't been already, there will be just calculations done of, the amount of time that have passed since, the 90s and stuff. You got people that are kind of into their 30s that are like, the 90s were, 10, 20 years ago. And it's like, no, it's been a while since the 90s. it's getting there. So, but yeah, whatever. It's a wild thing, this passage of time, but it's really not that, it's not that big of a deal. But it is interesting to think about once in a while, I do think it is funny, especially, considering that I talk about games a lot, video games a lot, thinking about when games have released, when games are or have sort of expected to have been released, or when there is kind of like the time in between when games in a franchise have been released. You know what I mean? If you look at excuse me, if you look at things from that perspective, I do think that there is sort of like a sense of realization of how much time has passed. I mean, I look at, it's been 4 or 5 years now since the pandemic or whatever. Well, 5 years really, if you kind of think about it. And I don't know. I just sort of don't even really think about that. I of course look at it being like, wow, I can't believe it's been that long. But I also try not to get too hung up on that. Because like, what is there really to, what is there really to say? Excuse me, my goodness, I have a frog in my throat today. What is there really to say? I mean, other than, it's been a while since COVID-19 first hit. I mean, there's only so much reflection that you can really provide that you haven't done already, especially for that time period. It is going to be, that is definitely going to be something looking back on that time. I think especially 5 years from now, I think kind of that decade period when you look back on it is going to feel pretty interesting. It's definitely going to be something that a lot of people, including myself, will look back on that time as a pretty significant, period where it just sort of completely threw, so many people's lives into like disarray and all that. Obviously, I won't get into that. I already talked that. I've already talked about it in length in, previous years, but it's going to be something. I don't know how this came, went from gaming to COVID, but you know what I mean? It's just, you got, certain milestones, you got certain eras, you could say, that were shaped by, significant, events and whatnot. I think just sort of on like a lighter, perspective, it is sort of fun to look at it. It's one way to look at it through the lens of when certain games were released and, what games I had been playing at that time. You know what I mean? I do wish, like, I think my I mean, I really started to kind of document more about me playing specific games. I would say more recently in the last couple of years, right? I do wish earlier on I had maybe talked about it more, talked about some of the things that I had been playing more, and just providing my thoughts on that. Because I look back on years like 2020 or 2021 and, think about like I had started, I think in 2020, I had started playing like Xenoblade 2. I think I also started to play, what else was I playing at that time? Probably Smash, most likely. Fire Emblem, Three Houses, like a lot of these games that are now considered some of the, better games of the Switch generation. I think it might have been interesting to kind of provide my thoughts on those games at that time when I had been playing them, and sort of thinking about it from the lens of, the perspective of where I was at that time, but also just sort of what I was thinking at that time. You know what I mean? Just kind of a look back on those experiences, because I think I feel like I would have had like a decent amount of things to say, especially about like Xenoblade 2. That's kind of a contentious game, especially among fans of the series, and I think I have a pretty unique, I feel like I have a pretty unique perspective on the game. And I don't know, maybe it's something where I do revisit it. I have talked about the game before, but I haven't provided as much in-depth thoughts about the game as I had to like 3, of course. So it might be something worth revisiting and talking about, because my thoughts on the game have really fluctuated a lot over the years. I've like replayed it maybe like once or twice at this point, and I've also like watched other people play it as well, and it's been interesting, because like I do think I still don't really have like a solid opinion on the game. I do like it, of course. I do really like aspects of it, but I definitely have some things that I sort of have. I still have my issues with the game, that regardless of how much other fans' perspective have maybe shifted over the years, I still kind of hold some of those things, because I still think that they hold the game back too. So it might be worth, as we get closer to the release of Xenoblade X, I think it might be fun to kind of look back on the series as a whole. I've obviously talked in length about 3, and I have talked about the original Xenoblade as well, but it might be fun to kind of do like maybe a little retrospective of sorts, considering that the whole series is now going to be on Switch. And I have kind of had these inklings, this sort of urge to replay the series in a way, right? It's funny because it's like I always look at it where there are so many other games that I could be playing. There are so many games out there that I have yet to play through. Yet I have just kind of this feeling, this want to like go back to the series. It's like, dude, it's like, is this really a good use of my time? Considering, all the other things that are out there that I've yet to touch. And I think, I feel I sort of go back and forth in between what I want to prioritize in terms of, how much time I want to dedicate to the games I play. Recently, I think I've found myself just sort of gravitating towards wanting to just kind of have fun with the games, at least in the last couple of weeks or so. It's sort of in the period where, I have, it's a bit of a lull time. It's kind of the holiday season and everything like that. I'm kind of back into my regular schedule and whatnot, but when I do have some time, I do want to play the games I have, but I have found myself just kind of having fun, especially right now with Risk of Rain 2. That's probably the game that I've sunk in the most hours to as of, recently. Just because I've like I've had this kind of continuous sort of, I don't know, I've grown to even appreciate unlocking the characters, like new characters, and trying them out. There's this kind of, I have this sort of want to try to complete a run with each of the characters that are available, and that's probably going to take me quite a while, but I've just been having fun with that. There's also kind of some, other secrets or other, achievements that are kind of out there that I think are worth, trying to seek out. But I've just been, it's been nice. It's like a really, it's like a perfect game for me to just have, just to play and maybe listen to a podcast or listen to music kind of at the same time. It feels very, I don't know, it just kind of, it scratches that itch for me, kind of the roguelite itch. It really works for me for some reason. I was expecting maybe, I don't know, maybe like Hades to sort of fill that role, but it's been surprising how much I've really liked Risk of Rain 2 after like even after a couple of years since I first purchased the game, it is funny. When I first played the game a little while back, when I first started playing the game, I just didn't use, for some reason, there's like kind of the main like trigger button for like the character's main attack, and for the first few runs that I did, I didn't use it, so I just kept dying. I'm like, damn, this game is hard. And the game is tough, but I was making it more difficult on myself because I didn't realize there was like there's a specific like attack that was sort of the main attack for the characters that I could just kind of hold down. But it was sort of funny in that way. And now I've just progressed to trying every single character out, at least the ones that I've unlocked, just continuing to try stuff out. And there's also like different game modes as well that I'm interested in trying, and also the DLC, which I might be interested in picking up. I know there was kind of a bit of maybe a mixed response to the DLC from what I remember when it released earlier in 2024, but I'm still interested in seeing what it looks like. Apparently there's other characters as well, so this game is just going to continue to sort of be in my, in sort of like my my game log. Probably a continuous thing that I'll be playing for quite some time until maybe I get tired of it, but for the time being, I'm just really enjoying just kind of, trying stuff out, trying some of the new characters out, because what I did was, for the longest time, I was really only playing as one character, and I just kept grinding it out, until I finally, completed a run. So it's like now the game has like almost like opened up to me in a way, because now that I've sort of maybe not mastered one of the, the first characters that you get introduced to, but, really just sort of, done what I feel like I have with that one, I can kind of move on to the other ones as well, as I sort of, move forward to trying to complete a run with each of them. So I don't know, it just continues to really expand for me, and I'm just having a lot of fun with it. It just feels there's not really a lot at stake. I'm just having fun with it, and it doesn't really feel like a waste of my time, which is funny to say, because in terms of like completing the game, I've already beat a run, and what other people might think of completion, like completing 100% completion is different, but this game I can just kind of continue to keep just keep working through it however you look at it. So just having fun with that. I also have I've also have put a few more hours into Final Fantasy 12, and just getting used to kind of the combat system, which mostly relies on like I guess I definitely I've said this when I first provided my initial thoughts, but I can definitely see kind of the Xenoblade comparison in terms of having your other characters kind of do auto battle and that kind of thing. I do think that there are, maybe it's just me getting used to the Gambit system where you set up action commands so that your other party members automatically do certain things. For example, I think one thing that I tried to set up was if one of the allies has their, HP below, 50%, then they would, heal or, give a potion to that character. And sometimes it's like a little finicky, like it doesn't feel like they're really responding to that. And it's a little frustrating, but I maybe it's just, maybe I just need to get used to that. 'Cause it is pretty like hands off for the most part. You do have the choice to, allow, choose the commands for each of the characters. And maybe that is something that I just kind of have to do if I really, I don't know, want to be decent at the game. Like I do like having some level of control over the characters, in terms of what they do. So I might just kind of do that. I don't know. We'll see. I'll see how I feel. It might just take time for me to get used to the Gambit system and everything like that. So, but yeah, I mean, so far it's cool. I like it. I like the setting and everything. I think we got introduced to kind of more characters as the story has progressed, and it is really funny. Like all of what I've kind of heard about the game in regards to the main character are pretty much true, where it's like all of the other characters you get introduced to after him are far more interesting than him. And it's just like, I don't know, maybe it's am I giving too much flack to Vaughn, who's the main character of the game, or is sort of perceived as the main character of the game. I don't know. He just hasn't given a lot yet. We'll see, man. Maybe he'll grow on me. I have no idea. I mean, I already kind of expressed this earlier. I don't really want to harp on it too much, but I just, like both the English and Japanese voice acting for Vaughn is not very good. And so, I don't know, maybe it's just hard it's making it hard for me to really stick with him and really, I don't know, it hasn't really appealed to me yet. So, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. Maybe he grows on me, and maybe he grows as a character too. So, but yeah, that's kind of been my experience with it so far. One thing that I have noticed, this is just my own thing that I've noticed. Some of the music, I don't know who the composer is. I don't think it's Uematsu. It doesn't sound like a Uematsu soundtrack, but it sounds, some of the town music, the city music, if you wanna call it that, sound very similar to Ni no Kuni. Really similar. I don't know, just maybe the tempo and like it's a little bit more lighthearted. It feels like it's a little more, I don't know, not as like dark. Maybe it's like in major key. I don't know music theory, but you know what I mean. It sounds a little more lighter than maybe some of the other like Final Fantasy games or JRPG games in general. And it was just something that I kind of noticed. It sort of sounded very similar to what I had heard in Ni no Kuni with like the town themes and whatnot. So I don't know. Because I know that Joe Hisashi did the soundtrack for Ni no Kuni, but it's possible that there might have been some other composers on that soundtrack as well. So maybe, I don't know. I'm interested in seeing if maybe there are some connections there, but maybe the music just sounds kind of similar, and that's all there is. But yeah, I've been enjoying it. I'm just going to continue to kind of make my way through that one. we recently got, I mean, recently, by recently, I mean earlier this morning, there were some more leaks for Switch 2, this time specifically for the Joy-Con itself. And listen, I'm not an expert on these things at all, but just looking at it, it looks pretty real. It looks like it looks like the real thing. I think there were some people that were able to confirm the warranty on it, and it looked like it was, a real warranty, because there's like a little like a serial number on there, and they were able to like somehow confirm it. But yeah, it's coming. It's definitely coming. I don't know. Like, I think people are saying the expectation is January 8th because that lines up with the original Switch announcement time. I hope it's this. I hope it's soon, man. I hope it's in the next couple of weeks. It would be nice to see that. It's really, I kind of feel what other people are saying, where at this point it kind of feels like Nintendo is kind of dragging their feet a little bit. You know what I mean? I understand for their purposes, for just to like really solidify, timing for it. I get it. I understand, but it's just kind of like, okay, I maybe they're just sort of waiting for like the full blow up or the blowout party for this year, and I totally understand that. But yeah, we know. Like, I think most people know, at least most people that are paying attention know and kind of know what to expect. So now it's just going to be a matter of obviously when it releases, and then the games. That's going to be the big thing. The games are going to be the biggest thing, really. What's going to be released at launch, what's going to be released for this year for the Switch 2, and that's going to be the big draw for me, especially. You know what I mean? I've already said this. I'm not going to get it at launch, but if there is anything on there as launch titles that would really incentivize me to getting the system, then maybe I will. And then obviously the price point as well. That'll be sort of the next biggest thing. I mean, if the thing is like $600, I'll probably pass. But if it's like a reasonable price, then maybe I'll consider. But we're getting there. We're getting closer and closer, it feels like. I just think that it's funny, kind of the cycle of hype for this thing, where last year there was just like this expectation, like, oh, it's for sure gonna launch this year, because I think there was like the whole, the play testing that it reportedly had gone on at VGC, or it was reported by VGC at I think PAX, and that was kind of like the boiling point, or like it was sort of like the first, like, one of the first major signs that this thing is real and it was going to happen. And then, you got later down the line in, I think it was midway point through 2024, we got confirmation that the Switch 2 was going to be announced, during this period, before the end of the physical year. And we got confirmation that it's going to be backwards compatible. So it was kind of funny just sort of seeing the progression of the Switch 2, where there was speculation that if it was even real or not. Then we really got confirmation from Nintendo themselves that there's going to be a successor. So I don't know. It's just kind of, I think we're finally at the point, and people can finally sort of breathe a sigh of relief and not really have to think about it too much longer. And now it's just going to be a matter of what's gonna be on there. What are the games and whatnot. I mean, I touched upon this about the UI and whatnot last week. I guess that'll be something to consider as well. But I think for most people, it's all just a matter of pricing and the games that are going to be on there. So, yeah, it's I don't know, what kind of people's excitement level is. I would say mine is sort of, I'm excited. I'm excited to see the thing. I sort of just, I'm kind of in the camp with a lot of people where I just want to see it. At this point, I just want actual official confirmation that this is coming out and when it's coming out. Just so that we can kind of move past this point and get ready for the more, just like the important thing, which is the game. So I'm gonna be cautiously optimistic of it being released in the next couple of weeks or so, hopefully. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna put too much stock into my own expectations, but it's just something that I personally would like to see. Let's talk a little bit about basketball. I did go to the Warriors game earlier this week. They lost to the Cavs in not the best way, but they've won the last two games against the Grizzlies, I think, and then also the Sixers. I watched the Sixers game. I did not watch last night's game against the Grizzlies. Apparently, Wiggins played pretty well. I'm happy that they're on a nice little, win streak. I hope that this doesn't tell the front office that there doesn't need to be changes made, because I still look, man, 2-game win streak is good. It's nice, but and I think they're playing the Kings later tonight as well, so looking forward to that. But this does not mean that there still shouldn't be changes. We are still not like a complete team, I mean, we won very strongly against the Sixers, but Curry basically had a perfect game. So that's not gonna happen every night. And we beat the Grizzlies, and they were without Ja and everything, but they're still a good team. So maybe that's a bit more of a I don't know, something to look forward to, and maybe something that we can kind of build off of. But that does not mean that there still shouldn't be a change. I don't think management should be complacent in that sense. So yeah, I'm happy. Of course I'm happy. But yeah, hopefully they continue to maybe look forward to retooling the roster. If you look at the standings, we're sort of in the pack with the Spurs, the Lakers, the Timberwolves, all of these teams, the Suns. I mean, the Suns are kind of faltering right now. It feels like they're kind of, I'm talking about the Suns, it feels like they're kind of maybe running out of steam with this group, with this roster makeup of Durant, Booker, and Beal. And it feels like it's kind of the end of this kind of Booker era of the team. I mean, listen, I feel that if you have the chance to trade for Durant, you just do it. You just kind of do it. So I don't necessarily blame them for moving forward with that, but unfortunately, it just doesn't seem like that makeup really worked. I think maybe the Beal trade probably kind of screwed things over quite a lot for them. So yeah, now they are underperforming by quite a bit, which is really interesting because of how they were playing really well earlier this season, kind of similar to the Warriors, and now I guess we're kind of in the same position as they are, in terms of, I mean, the Warriors are doing a little better for sure, but I would still consider us to be kindred spirits. You know what I mean? of where they're sort of in the same position, dealing with a similar issue. Yeah, so I just feel it's probably, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to turn that ship around. I mean, we're seeing other teams kind of faltering right now. I guess the Timberwolves are maybe another example of that. I don't know. It's they're kind of a weird case because of them the cat trade and how they're dealing with that. But it was sort of, I don't know, wasn't it kind of expected maybe that they were, I don't know. I forgot what I said about the cat trade. I think I might have said that to like the Minnesota. Actually, I don't know. I think I might have said that it was a bad trade for both sides. I don't exactly remember, but I think the teams that are really sort of not falling apart, but sort of sliding. Yeah, you got the Suns in the West. You got the Heat in the East, which is a whole another situation, with Jimmy Butler wanting out and everything. They lost by